Good morning, Mountain Christian. I think one of the most frustrating parts of this pandemic has just been the lack of answers. I just want answers to some very simple questions. How long will it be before we return to normal? How much impact will this pandemic have on our economy? And to what extent has this stay-at-home order really helped the outcomes of this pandemic? We need to be careful, though, of the questions that we ask, because sometimes we may not really want to know the answers. This was the case of Habakkuk back in the Old Testament. He got really frustrated. He was seeing very sinful people taking advantage of the needy and the poor. And he saw that they were greatly prospering from this behavior. And Habakkuk was saying, God, when are you going to bring justice to this situation? And interestingly, God chose to answer Habakkuk's question. But it was an answer that Habakkuk was not expecting, nor would he really have wanted to know. In fact, God says, hey, I'm in control. I'm fully aware of the situation, and I have it in hand. In fact, I've got a plan already in motion. I'm going to use the Babylonians to punish the Israelites. In fact, I'm going to, completely destroy the nation of Israel, and I'm going to carry everyone off into captivity. And Habakkuk goes, oh, wait, I don't understand, God. Babylon, of everyone, they're more wicked than we are. How can you use them to bring justice? And God, again, chose to answer Habakkuk's question. And in this case, he said, again, I've got things covered. The Babylonians, they will be punished for their sins just as well. And they will, really be punished. But it's interesting that God qualifies his answers. He starts off by noting that there are really two different kinds of people. In chapter 2, verse 4, he says, Behold, his soul is puffed up. It is not upright within him, but the righteous shall live by his faith. In other words, again, there's two different types of people. One is the puffed up, the proud, the ones who think that they have some control over their destiny. And then there's the second type of people, the righteous, who live by faith. And it's interesting that this little verse, the righteous shall live by faith, it's one of the most quoted verses from the Old Testament in the New Testament. Paul alone uses it 3 different times. It's just a basic tenet of we as Christians, that we live by faith. Our total faith is in Jesus Christ and nothing else. God goes on then to say, well, the Babylonians, they fall into that first group. They're, very proud people. They're depending on their own strength and power. And he then proclaims 5 different woes against them. In other words, the different punishments for their bad behavior, basically. And then God finishes up by saying that basically there are 2 different types of gods. Starting in verse 18, again, of chapter 2. What profit is an idol when its maker has shaped it? A metal image, a teacher of lies? For its maker trusts in his own creation when he makes speechless idols. Woe to him who says to a wooden thing, Awake, to a silent stone, Arise. Can this teach? Behold, it is overlaid with gold and silver, and there is no breath in it at all. But the Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth keep silence before him. In other words, there's 2 different types of God. There's the one kind of God made with human hands. Yes, it's a pretty object. It could be, overlain with gold or silver, but it has no life. It can't move. It can't speak. It can't do anything. And then there's God. There's God who's in his holy temple. His God who's on his throne. He's engaged with world affairs. He cares. He knows. And he makes amends. So what do we learn from all of this? What is the takeaway for us today? Well, we can see that just as in Habakkuk's time, we're always faced with difficult situations. We're always faced with questions that we just don't have good answers for. And again, sometimes we may not want to know the answers, as in Habakkuk's time. But God has answers. God has a plan, and God's on top of these things. But because these questions are difficult, because we don't have answers, humanly for these questions. Oftentimes, we're lured away. We become proud. We begin to think that we may be able to control our own destiny. We begin to go toward other gods, money, fame, relationships, or even trust in our own government to find solutions to these difficult problems, to help verify or to assure our future destiny. So now more than ever, we need to be careful. We must all the more live by faith, put our faith totally in Jesus Christ. And we need to be still and realize that God is in his holy temple. So, Mountain Christian, we just need to chill out. We need to be still. We need to realize God is in his holy temple and that he's got a plan for all of this. Be blessed.